This video is optional viewing, but I just want to provide a little more context for the sphenoid bone since we talk about it so much in the skull lab. So if we're looking at our interior view of the cranial fossa, remember that the sphenoid bone is going to form the majority of that middle cranial fossa that we see. So from our holistic view here, we can see things such as the lesser wings of the sphenoid, creating that almost manta ray pattern. The greater wing would be forming the floor of that middle cranial fossa. And then of course we have our ROS foramen. Now, when we look at an isolated sphenoid bone, it's a little trickier to see. So what we are seeing here, if you get them side by side, we are looking at the portion of the sphenoid bone that would be in that middle cranial fossa. So just compare the two. Here is that lesser wing. Here is that greater wing. And then of course we have the body in the middle. So this divot that you see here is just like the sella turcica on our model. Other things that we can see on the sphenoid bone, we of course have our R foramen and our O foramen. So this is that foramen rotundum and then foramen ovale. And we have those views as well, foramen rotundum, foramen ovale on the skull. If we tilt this slightly, we can see a very, very small opening here. That would be our foramen spinosum. So that one's going to be a little easier to see on our model if we tilt. Lastly, the last thing I want to point out here is that the sphenoid bone also has openings to the orbit. So if we flip our skull around for a second, we have those three landmarks that we talked about in the orbit itself: the superior orbital fissure, the inferior orbital fissure, and then our optic canal. We can also see those on our sphenoid. So let's flip this guy around as well. This would be more like what is forming the back of that orbit. So I'm going to put a wire through here to show the superior orbital fissure. That's our superior orbital fissure. It's the exact same thing we see on our model. So let's come in from the back from that sphenoid bone. That's going to be our superior orbital fissure. And then the last major opening that we can see here is that optic canal. So let's stick our wire through. This is going to be that optic canal. And then likewise on our skull, the optic canal can also be entered from that middle cranial fossa. So here's that optic canal. So this is just to help you visualize that sphenoid bone. We see a lot of different views of it, the main one being from that interior view. But when we look at the bone in isolation, of course, it's much trickier to see those relationships.